Part 96. The Koi Fairy Wife is Sweet as Honey, Love from the Koi Goddess. Author, Su Xiaozhezhi. Chapter 952. When she was hurriedly called over by Lord Ye, what she saw was almost a bloody man. Shuanghan's body was full of wounds, and those wounds could not be healed with divine power, so she could only lie there like that, warmed up with elixir, and slowly recovered. Frost and cold like this must be taken care of. Although Ye Shenzhen has a good relationship with her, he is a man after all, so there are many inconveniences, so he called her here. Wang Shu took care of Frost Han, who was lying unconscious on the bed for 400 years. That is, these 400 years have made her understand what kind of feelings the man she admires has for another woman. She often stood outside the door, watching Ye Shenzhen sitting quietly in front of Shuanghan's hospital bed, sitting for a whole day. Wang Shu was very familiar with the way he looked at her. Because she looked at Yagamai with the same eyes from time to time. It's no wonder that Ye Shen, who is gentle by nature and doesn't like to kill, has become best friends with Sword Ancestor, who flaunts dominance and lawlessness. No wonder Ye Shenzhen, who doesn't like strong wine, can brew the strongest wine in the three realms. When she understood this, no one knew how cold Wang Shu felt, except herself. But she was just dejected at the time. She still took good care of Shuanghan, fulfilled Ye Shen's order perfectly, and waited for her rival in love to wake up. Shuanghan finally regained consciousness after lying on the bed for 400 years. Of course, she just regained consciousness. She was still lying on the bed with injuries all over her body, coughing for a long time even if she said a word. But it has begun to recover. During that period of time, Wang Shu really got to know Jianzi Shuanghan. She is indeed a very difficult to dislike woman. She is domineering, upright, and proud, but she presents all of these frankly and above board. She didn't even understand Ye Shen's feelings for her at all. If it wasn't for that later incident, Wang Shu thought, maybe I would still be good friends with Shuanghan, and then with an expression of appreciation and jealousy, I watched her and Ye Shenzhen continue to be best friends in front of them. Jinli listened to Goddess Wang Shu's confession in silence. She felt that Goddess Wang Shu was a little pitiful, but Father Tiandao didn't seem to be much better. In this kind of relationship, the person who falls in love first is always much more painful. When thinking of this, she thought of Lu Zhenjie. When he was in the human world, what kind of mood did he have when he heard himself indifferently rejecting it again and again? Jinli closed her eyes hard and forced herself not to think about it. The dead are hard to recover, such as thinking about the present. In the future, she will treat him better and better. The two of you are fine, let's walk down together. So what happened? She asked. Goddess Wang Shu's expression has returned to calm at that time, and she has become the unsmiling, clear, and cold goddess of the Moon Palace that everyone recognizes. Later, one night, I went out for a walk and saw Ye Shenzhen drinking alone. Ye Shen seldom drank alcohol, let alone when he was recuperating from the frost. He had to go to see Shuanghan almost every day, and it was impossible to see her with a breath of alcohol. As much as Ye Shen understands Shuanghan, Wang Shu understands Ye Shen as well. He has something on his mind. And it is a very difficult, even unsolvable worry. Wang Shu couldn't help but walked over to ask him what happened. Thanks to those glasses of wine, she managed to pry Ye Shen's mouth open. I saw something. Ye Shen's eyes were slightly drunk, and there was pain that could not be concealed. The Koi Fairy Wife is Sweet as Honey, Love from the Koi Goddess. Author, Su Xiaozhezhi. Chapter 953. Wang Shu couldn't see his eyes like this. What is it, my God? She asked. When Ye Shen was so dazed, he said in a low voice, Shuanghan killed a heavenly Dao, and the rules require her to pay a heavenly Dao. At first, Wang Shu couldn't understand this sentence. She thought, heavenly Dao has already been beheaded and disappeared, so how can I pay for it? It wasn't until she carefully considered the sentence several times that she suddenly understood. This way of heaven is not that way of heaven. She can't pay a piece of heavenly Deo, but she can become heavenly Deo by herself. When she understood this level, Wang Shu felt ecstasy in her heart. How can we not be ecstatic? What is the way of heaven? If she, Shuanghan, wants to become the Deo of heaven, she will be stripped of her emotions and desires. From then on, there will be no sword ancestor Shuanghan in the chaos god realm, only the emotionless, rule enforcer, Shuanghan. If so, she is doomed to have no feelings anymore. She and God Venerable, there is absolutely no possibility. If there is no Shuanghan, then she, Wang Shu, will have a chance, right? Wang Shu knew in her heart that her thoughts were selfish and dark, but she just couldn't restrain herself. She couldn't pry more words out of Yeshen's mouth, but for her, knowing this was enough. No one can defy the law. Asterisk. When Jinli heard this, she couldn't restrain her shock. If, according to what goddess Wangshu said, the law of heaven is frost and cold, then why did he become the father of heaven in the end? In the middle. She thought of a terrible possibility. Jinli opened her mouth with difficulty. My heavenly father, isn't it? Goddess Wangshu glanced at her. You guessed it, right? Jinli was not at all sure if the guess in her words meant what she imagined. If it's true. It was hard for Jinli to imagine that Yezun, who was so gentle, introverted, and temperless, would ever be so crazy about someone. That's the truth, goddess Wangshu said. Since that day, nothing seems to be the same as before. Yeshen still looks gentle and introverted, and will visit Shuanghan every day to talk to her. Shuanghan, who could only rely on limpness to barely sit up, asked for anything, no matter how rare something she wanted, Yeshen could fetch it for her, except for drinking. The injury on your body is not suitable for drinking, Yeshen said this every time. And the frost-cold sword master, who has always been stubborn and domineering, even admitted to being defeated in front of him, and actually endured it. Everything was so peaceful that Wang Shu thought that the drunken Yezun he saw that night was just his own hallucination. But this is not an illusion after all. That day, when she was carrying the refined elixir to give to Shuanghan, she heard the conversation between the two. Yeshen was asking her, Shuanghan, if one day, someone asked you to abandon everything you have, let go of your emotions and desires, and become a supreme existence above all gods, would you be willing? Shuanghan seemed to be very surprised by his question. While talking strangely, he asked back, giving up everything about me, stripping away all my emotions and 6 desires, then am I still me? Is Shuanghan still Shuanghan? She sat on the bed, seemed to think about the possibility very seriously, and then shook her head. No, 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 I feel terrible when I think of this possibility. If I really become such an existence, I'm afraid it will be me, you won't know yourself anymore. She finally made a conclusion, if I want to live like that, I might as well die. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Koi Fairy Wife is sweet as honey, love from the Koi Goddess. Author, Sushao Zheji. Chapter 954. The scariest thing about Shuanghan is that when she said the word death, her expression was casual, but the thing in her eyes clearly told others that she was not lying. She really felt that it was meaningless to make her a completely different god from the past, even if she could be supreme. It's better to die. Wang Shu clearly saw that when Shuanghan said these words, how ugly the face of the god sitting opposite her became in that instant. It's a pity that Shuanghan, who lowered his head, couldn't see it. If she saw it, she would definitely find something was wrong. But no. Yeshen said goodbye to her. Wang Shu raised his legs and followed quickly. Ever since she heard Shuanghan's words, she had a bad premonition in her heart. And when she saw Ye Shen's expression again, this bad premonition reached its peak. Shenzhen, she called Ye Shen anxiously, but she didn't know what to say. But she didn't know that the man in front of her had already made a decision at this moment, and she lost the only chance to stop him. But after thinking about it afterwards, Wang Shu knew very well that even if he opened his mouth at that time, he would not have any change in the final result. She couldn't stop him. In this world, except for one person, no one can stop Ye Shenzhen who has made up his mind. So, you mean, Father Tiandao, he became Tiandao's father because of Shuanghan. If he hadn't heard Goddess Wang Shu say this, Jinli would never have guessed the truth. This is really. Jinli couldn't even find an adjective to describe his mood at the moment. You think I'm lying? Goddess Wang Shu looked at her. Jinli shook her head. I'm not. Goddess Wang Shu has already raised 2 fingers. I can swear in the name of the lunar star that what Wang Shu said just now is true. If there is a false statement, I will die and fall into reincarnation forever. Jinli. I really didn't question what you meant, I was just too shocked. But Goddess Wang Shu's oath really dispelled her last doubt. She looked at Goddess Wang Shu. Why did you tell me this? It's not always because you are bored and find someone to talk to, right? Goddess Wang Shu, I really want you to do one thing. Jinli was alert. What's the matter? Goddess Wang Shu said coldly, go to the abyss of gods, and tell Shuanghan what I said to you today. Jinli. Goddess Wang Shu stared at her fixedly. That's my goal, but I won't force you, Jinli. You can think about it for yourself. Why did your father, Tiandao, bear and pay so much for her alone? But she doesn't know anything, she doesn't have any burden in her heart, and she even resents the heavenly Dao for suppressing her in the abyss of gods. Jinli, Goddess Wang Shu yelled at her, don't you feel sorry for your heavenly father? These words fell on Jinli's ears like thunder. But she just took a step back and looked at Goddess Wang Shu calmly. Having said that, Goddess, do you really just feel sorry for my father Tiandao? Don't you have any selfish intentions? Goddess Wang Shu smiled. Of course. She admitted it very readily. I'm jealous of her, and I'm unhappy, so I want her to know all this, so that she will also be unhappy. The Koi fairy wife is sweet as honey, love from the Koi goddess. Author, Sushao Zhaji. Chapter 955. When Jinli returned to Tianqi, he looked quite out of his mind. Lu Zhenjia was startled, and worried. What's wrong? Is something really going to happen? It's Tiandao. Of course, he didn't know that Goddess Wang Shu was chatting with Jinli, let alone the content of the chat. He thought that Jinli became like this after finding the way of heaven. Jinli came back to his senses and raised his hand for a hug. Lu Zhenjia hugged her, and patted her on the back with one hand as if comforting a child. What's wrong? It's okay, ah. Jinli closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The tip of her nose was filled with Lu Zhenjia's clear breath. It's nothing serious, Tiandao's father is fine, she said sullenly. Lu Zhenjia was surprised. Since you're fine, why are you like this? Jinli lay in his arms, and said softly, I just learned a secret, but I don't know if I should tell the secret to the person involved. Lu Zhenjia, who didn't know the inside story, couldn't chime in on this topic. He could only hold Jinli in his arms and use his actions to prove that he was on her side. No matter what you choose, I will support you. Jinli burst out laughing, raised his hand and slapped him on the shoulder. This kind of tone of the faint king. If I want to do bad things in the future, will you support me? That's natural. Lu Zhenjia was serious. A qualified boyfriend. Even if my girlfriend points to the east, I will never go west. Speaking of the word boyfriend, Lu Zhenjia came up with some other thoughts. Jinli. He walked up to Jinli and asked, do you still remember what you said to me a long time ago? Jinli looked blank. Ah. What? Lu Zhenjia gave a hint. A long time ago, when Ren Tiandao made troubles. Jinli thought about it carefully, and replied straightforwardly, "At that time, I said too many things." "Which sentence did you mean?" Lu Zhenjie. He went further, "You said at the time that after this incident passed, we, Jinli thought hard for a moment, Lu Zhenjie looked at her expectantly. "Jinli, well, I can't remember." Lu Zhenjie. He was a little stuffy, and he couldn't bear to get angry with Jinli, so he sighed heavily, turned around and squatted to the other side to pull weeds. Seeing him like this, Jinli finally couldn't hold back and laughed out loud while clutching his stomach. "She actually does. How can you not remember? How can forget?" Lu Zhenjie finally came to his senses. He widened his eyes, ran back again, grabbed Jinli, and held him firmly in his arms. "Okay, you clearly remember, you did it on purpose." Jinli smiled and said, "I just want to see your reaction, to tease you, ha ha ha." Lu Zhenjie hugged her tightly, and said softly, "Jinli, can you tell me again?" Jinli stopped laughing. Lu Zhenjie looked into her eyes. The two were so close that they could clearly see their own reflection in each other's eyes. Lu Zhenjie spoke again, "Tell me that sentence again, okay?" Jinli put away his smile and looked serious. She said solemnly, "I don't feel good." Lu Zhenjie's expression darkened. "Why?" "I don't think so. It's clear that there's nothing else to do now." "Why wait until everything is over?" Jinli said the second half of the sentence with a smile. "The koi fairy wife is sweet as honey, love from the koi goddess." Author, Sushao Zhaji. Chapter 956. Lu Zhenjie's sad expression froze on his face. His eyes slowly glowed, and he looked at Jinli without blinking. "You mean?" Jinli smiled, her eyes turned into crescents, and her tone was brisk. "I said, there's no need to wait for the aftermath." "Lu Zhenjie, are you willing to be my Taoist companion?" "I am willing," Lu Zhenjie growled impatiently. Then Jinli couldn't react, so he hugged her, and his scorching breath pressed over her. He kissed her hair, her forehead, her eyes, her cheeks, and her lips. He took Jinli's hand with both hands, put them in his palms, squeezed them in aggressively, and interlocked his fingers. His voice even trembled, "I am willing, I am willing. I've been waiting for this sentence for tens of thousands of years. I finally waited." Surrounding his body, trembling, Jinli could clearly sense his movements. She stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the chin. Her eyes were sore, but her lips were smiling. "Well, it's true. I'm Jinli, and I'm here. We will always be together." Asterisk. Lu Zhenjie was going to take Jinli to meet Doughty. He is a divine beast born and raised without father or mother. When he was a child, Doughty took him basically. Doughty is an impatient god, and he has no experience in raising children. He picks up a mythical beast egg and puts it in the wild. When a pixie hatches from the mythical beast egg, he continues to raise it. Frankly speaking, Lu Zhenjie was able to grow up safely, not because Doughty cared about him too much, but because he was born strong as a divine beast. But even so, the two brothers have depended on each other for a long, long time. In Lu Zhenjie's mind, Doughty was definitely an extraordinary existence. He is a father, a brother, and a friend. Jinli had seen Doughty before, but now that tens of thousands of years had passed, she had officially recovered her memory, returned to the heaven, and decided to become a Taoist couple with Lu Zhenjie, so she must officially meet Doughty. The nature is similar to meeting parents. Doughty is easy to find. Because he is lazy. Unless you are too hungry to sleep and must go out to look for food, otherwise, most of the time, you just need to go to his cave to find a sleeping glutton. This time is no exception. However, Lu Zhenjie gave the news in advance, so when the two of them arrived, what they saw was a very dignified Doughty who rarely dressed himself properly. But it's just watching. As soon as he opened his mouth, he couldn't hide his true nature. He looked at Jinli and sighed, "I've been going around for so many years, my stupid brother, I finally got you." Jinli. This parent's words are not easy to accept. So she kept smiling. Dowdy glanced at her, then stretched out his hand to feel inside the sleeve for a while, but he couldn't find anything. He said to Jinli without changing his expression, "Accordingly, I should give you a meeting gift. But we beasts have always been poor, and besides, you are loved by heaven and in charge of luck, so you are too much compared to good things there are many, and I can't find a satisfactory one. Lu Pixie a very poor geniat. Brother, when you talk, can you take a look at your brother? You talk like this, what's the face of my Pixiu, a lucky beast?" However, his brother didn't look at him. He frowned and thought for a while, then said to Jinli, "In this way, I will give you a promise. No matter what you have in the future, you can let me solve it for you once." A total of 37 chapters seem to be updated, and there will be an update tomorrow. Today's focus is on the title. Ask, month, ticket, ah. In addition, the top post in the book review area, Jinli's birthday event and August-long review event, everyone is welcome to participate. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Koi Fairy Wife is sweet as honey, love from the Koi Goddess. Author, Sushao Zheji. Chapter 957. Jinli was a little surprised, and said with a smile, "Brother Dowdy, you don't have to be like this." She followed Lu Zhenjia and called Brother Dowdy. This kind of promise is much more important than giving something. Dowdy waved his hands, and glanced at the two of them without energy. "Don't think too much." Jinli. Dowdy pointed to Lu Zhenjia, "I said this just to take advantage of a loophole. In fact, wouldn't I have said this? If you have anything, can I not help?" Jinli. Dowdy's indifferent face, "Lu Zhenjia, that brat, has been dying for tens of thousands of years. One time is enough for this kind of thing. So if you have anything to do, for Lu Zhenjia's sake, I will try my best to help." Jinli was silent. She sincerely said to Dowdy, "Thank you, brother." Lu Zhenjia was also a little moved, "Thank you, brother Dowdy." Dowdy, "Well, thank you, there is no need. If there is nothing else, you two can leave." Two people. Dowdy, "I want to continue to sleep, don't bother me." Two people. What else could they say? Of course they said goodbye politely and walked out. After he came out, Lu Zhenjia said to Jinli, "Don't mind, it's not that brother Dowdy doesn't like you, he just has this personality." Jinli wanted to laugh a little, "I can tell. I've heard that Dowdy has a weird personality, but today I really saw it." Lu Zhenjia also laughed. Of course, he still hoped that there would be no grievances between lovers and relatives, and that they would live in harmony. He said, because of his own characteristics, brother Dowdy is usually in a bad mood and has no energy. Therefore, he will be impatient with others, especially those he doesn't know well. What he didn't say is that, in fact, his patience with acquaintances is not much better. Jinli was completely understandable. Because of its own characteristics, Dowdy can never get enough to eat, and will always be in a state of hunger. Under such circumstances, who can still be a gentle son? Dowdy is just a little lazy, doesn't like to move, has no energy, and occasionally has a violent tongue and temper, which is already not easy. Lu Zhenjia sighed, "For so many years, I have thought of countless ways, but I just can't find a way to solve this matter. How can this kind of thing that is related to the instinct of race be so easy to suppress? Just like Pixiu, if you make Lu Zhenjia a money spreader from now on, his heart will be broken." The two of them have seen Dowdy, even if they have met the man's parents. Next, It's time to meet the woman's parents. Who is the woman's parent? Of course it is heaven. Lucenja still remembered the last time he slashed in the face, and he didn't dare to hate Tiandeo, but asked with some concern, Heavenly Deo won't slash me again, will he? It was hard for Jinli to say the probability. She thought about it, and said very sincerely, it's really possible, maybe it depends on my father Tiandeo's mood. I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll let you go for the sake of finishing the hack last time. If you are in a bad mood, mom. But Tiandeo's mood is definitely one of the most difficult things to guess in this world. Don't worry about it, Lucenja looked desperate, we go to see him, the worst thing is that we will be hacked again. He wanted to become a Taoist couple with Jinli. Whether it was out of respect or something, he had to formally meet with Tiandeo first and talk to him. Jinli had no scruples and heard him say, then go. The koi fairy wife is sweet as honey, love from the koi goddess. Author, Sushao Zheji. Chapter 958. However, the development of the matter was completely unexpected to Jinli and Lucenja. They went to the 33rd heaven very smoothly and saw the heavenly Deo. When Lucenja proposed to become a Taoist couple with Jinli, Tiandeo did not show any surprise. But immediately, Jinli and Lucenja were surprised. Because Tiandeo was only silent for a moment, he readily agreed, all right. Lucenja was ready to be made things difficult, and said, God, what's the matter, why are you so easy to talk about today? The next moment, Tiandeo looked at Lucenja, you can also be regarded as the ones who walked over me, it's not easy. Lucenja let out a hum in a daze. Tiandeo continued, you can tell me what gift you want? Jinli was also in a daze now. No. Today's Tiandeo father is so easy to talk to? She looked up carefully at Tiandeo's father's expression, his face was still expressionless, so he couldn't see any emotion. But Jinli knew something was wrong. Just after getting the approval of the elders inexplicably and smoothly, Jinli winked at Lucenja. Lucenja understood in seconds. He got up knowingly and bid farewell, but Jinli stayed. After all, Jinli was closer to Tiandeo. She could ask questions and doubts, but others could not. Father Tiandeo, do you have something on your mind? Jinli asked. Tiandeo shook his head, nothing. Jinli didn't believe it. She asked directly, you are very talkative today, I thought you would make things difficult for us. When Tiandeo heard the words, his eyes fell on her, Jinli. Jinli responded, huh. Tiandeo got up and walked in front of her, raised his hand, like any loving elder in the world, stroked the top of her hair. Whether it was in the past or in this life, I watched you grow up. Tiandeo looked at her softly, I hope you live well. Jinli's nose was sour. Tiandeo paused, and said, I watched Pixia grow up, although he is not generous enough, not good at talking, and not smart enough. Jinli. She quietly listened to Tiandeo's father scolding a lot of Lucenja's shortcomings, waiting for a turning point in his words. But in this context, there is always a but after it. Behind the but is the key point of this statement. Sure enough, Tiandeo's tone paused again. But, you like him, and he loves you too, Tiandeo said slowly. Jinli looked at him with wide eyes. Tiandeo said, you are together, know each other and stay together. You will be satisfied and happy. That's enough. This is very unlike the words that the impartial and selfless way of heaven can say. Jinli couldn't hold back, lowered her head, and shed a tear, which she quickly wiped away. She remembered something and asked in a joking tone, Father Tiandeo, I'm going to cry when you say that. Tiandeo glanced at her, if you cry, you cry. It's not something to be ashamed of. You don't need to hide it. Obviously, she had seen her wiping her tears a long time ago. Jinli, oh. She smiled, Father Tiandeo, when you talked just now, I almost made me think you like someone too. She inadvertently asked, "Father Tiandeo, have you ever liked anyone?" 33 Heavens fell into silence in an instant. Jinli held his breath, waiting for Tiandeo's response. "No." A cold voice sounded in this space. "The koi fairy wife is sweet as honey, love from the koi goddess." Author, Sushao Zheji. Chapter 959. Jinli looked up at him. Tiandeo didn't look at her, his silver inorganic eyes stared at the void in front of him. "The way of heaven does not have selfish desires," he said. Seeing Jinli looking at him, Tiandeo repeated, "Tiandeo has no selfish desires." Will there be no selfish desires, or can there be no selfish desires? If there were no selfish desires, why would the Chaos God realm remain clouded for a month? If you don't have selfish desires, why would you say those words to me just now? Jinli didn't want to think about the answers to these questions. She changed the subject and sighed, "Father Tiandeo, after I devoured the soul orb, I always feel that the world is impermanent." "What for?" Jinli looked at him. "You used to be the strongest and gentlest person in my mind. If I had to tell you, the chaotic world could find 100 gods who are more suitable for the heaven than you." Tiandeo was silent. Jinli asked him again, "Is it uncomfortable to strip away the emotions and desires and become the way of heaven?" Tiandeo turned to look at her. "Jinli, you talk too much today." Jinli met his gaze without avoiding it, "But no one else would dare to ask you such a question except me. Father Tiandeo, living alone in the 33rd heaven for tens of thousands of years, are you lonely?" As soon as these words came out, Jinli was dizzy. When she came back to her senses, she found that she had changed places. Lu Zhenjia looked at her who suddenly appeared, wondering what happened, and asked, "Are you done chatting?" Jinli bit her lip and whispered, "Let's go back." She was in a bad mood. Seeing her like this, Lu Zhenjia was very puzzled. "Heavenly Dao agrees that we form a Taoist couple, why, you are still not happy watching it?" Jinli sighed. Right now, she really wants to have someone who can listen to her and give her advice. But about Tiandeo's father's private affairs, even Lu Zhenjia, she couldn't speak out at will. She could only say, "I'm a little tired and want to sleep for a while." She always knew how to divert Lu Zhenjia's attention. Sure enough, upon hearing what she said, Lu Zhenjia hurriedly said, "Then go to sleep quickly, and I'll make something delicious for you. You can eat it when you wake up." Jinli smiled and nodded, "Yes." When Lu Zhenjia went out, Jinli lay on the bed and turned over. Her brows were furrowed tightly. Father Tiandeo was in a bad mood. It's so obvious. If he really doesn't care, if he really has no emotions, there is no need to drive himself out. It is precisely because of this performance that it shows that he is not without selfish desires. Heaven does not have selfish desires. He repeated the sentence twice. Was he telling Jinli or was he trying to convince himself? Jinli lay on his back on the bed, looking at the flower vines above his head, carefully thinking about his conversation with Tiandeo's father today. Her eyes suddenly froze. "You like him, and he loves you too. It will be very happy if you know each other and stay together." As a daughter, Jinli has been with Tiandeo's father for so many years. This kind of intimate style that can be called sensational is definitely not something Tiandeo would say. But he did say it again. What made him say such a thing? Recently, what happened wrong? Ever since he went to the abyss of gods and met the frost and cold sword master, Father Tiandeo felt that something was wrong. Regardless of the cloudy month. It was also his extra tolerance for himself and Lu Zhenjia today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Koi Fairy Wife is sweet as honey, love from the Koi Goddess. Author, Sushao Zheji. Chapter 960. Jinli had been visibly irritable during this time. This tormented Lu Zhenjie enough. He's been busy these days. Busy preparing to become a Taoist couple with Jinli, he sent invitations to the gods who had a good relationship with both parties, and also arranged for Tianke. As a pixie with no principles, Jinli likes to live in Tianke, so of course he just wants to marry a fish and follow the fish. No, he followed the brain and lived in Tianke. Jinli was in a bad mood because he was thinking about other things. As a boss who has lived in the world for more than 20 years, according to what he learned, Lu Zhenjie thought that his quasi-Taoist couple had premarital anxiety because they were too nervous. So when he was busy, he cooked various calming soups for Jinli every day. Jinli was so drunk that he couldn't laugh or cry. This day, she was sitting on the grass, holding a handful of words that she had just picked out of boredom. Lu Zhenjie, I have a question to ask you. Lu Zhenjie quickly sat down beside his wife. Ask. That's right, if there is someone, he has paid a lot for you and done a lot of things without telling you. What do you think? Jinli asked. Lu Zhenjie thought for a moment, then asked cautiously, why did he keep it from me? Jinli shook her head, because this is not a good thing. He will lose a lot if he does it, but if he doesn't do it, you have to do it. He did it for you and paid a lot, do you understand me? Lu Zhenjie nodded. He asked Jinli nervously, are you hitting me? Jinli was taken aback, what? Lu Zhenjie was relieved by her reaction. Jinli narrowed her eyes, what did you mean just now? Lu Zhenjie smiled at her flatteringly, I thought you were implying me just now. I promise, no matter what I do in the future, I will tell you that I am absolutely not good at making decisions. Jinli. Now that she thought about it, in terms of self-assessment and giving for others, the man in front of her was really distressing. Substituting Lu Zhenjie and herself, Jinli suddenly understood. She finally understood why she had been so upset for such a long time. Because after she knew how much Lu Zhenjie had done for her, she felt more emotions besides distress. If she were to choose by herself, she would absolutely not want Lu Zhenjie to do those things for herself. So what about Frost? Although I've only met her once, one can imagine how proud and domineering a god who would kill even the Dao of heaven would have. Will she be willing to accept the love of Tiandao's father? And from her tone of voice before, she clearly had a grudge against Tiandao's father. From her perspective, she did nothing wrong. She beheaded Tiandao, causing chaos in the 3,000 worlds, and was punished. But for her, compared to being suppressed by the gods, being betrayed by her best friend is the most difficult thing to accept, right? But what's wrong with Tiandao's father? He had done so much, paid so much, and lost so much, yet the unknowing resentment stabbed him in the heart. No. Thinking about it is really cruel. Jinli shook his head violently. She patted herself on the head hard. Goddess Wangshu is really. Jinli gritted her teeth. Yangmu used it too accurately. She was right. After she knew about it, she couldn't bear it at all. 41 more. See you tonight. Ask for a monthly ticket, a monthly ticket, a monthly ticket, a duck. The koi fairy wife is sweet as honey, love from the koi goddess. Author, Sushao Zheji. Chapter 961. I want to go to the abyss of the gods, she said to Lu Zhenjie. Lu Zhenjie asked, what are you going to do? Jinli looked up at the sky, and said softly, at least I received the favor of Senior Shuanghan last time. We are going to be extremely Taoist couples. I'll go and tell her the good news. Lu Zhenjie felt that there was some truth in what he said, but it didn't make sense. But he couldn't think of a reason to refute, so he nodded, that's fine. Jinli waited for a while, but did not wait for any reaction before raising the corners of his mouth. The next day, she prepared a lot of things and went to the abyss of gods. God's abyss was no different from the last time she went there, the sky was still smoggy, the ground was like scorched earth, and the deadly karmic fire was constantly floating everywhere. And that hopeless silence. Jinli knew very well that, not to mention just a few days, even 10,000 years later, this place would still look like this. "Why are you here again?" The woman lying on the rock raised her eyebrows and looked at her. Jinli smiled and said, "I'll bring you something, senior." As she spoke, she stretched out her hand and a table appeared in front of her eyes. There is a jug of wine and some side dishes on the table. Shuanghan glanced sideways, and lazily lifted his lips. "What does this mean?" Jinli rolled her eyes. "Lu Zhenjia and I will soon become Taoist couples." Shuanghan let out an ah and said, "Congratulations." Jinli thanked her. "I'm under the care of my seniors, so I came here to let you know." Shuanghan pointed to the dishes on the table. "By the way, treat me to a meal." Jinli smiled and nodded. Shuanghan was not too polite. She sat down at the table, but didn't take the chopsticks. Instead, she picked up the wine in front of her and poured herself a glass. After taking a sip, she closed her eyes slightly to feel it, and said, "It's not bad, but it's still a lot worse than the wine brewed by your father Tiandao." Hearing the word Tiandao, Jinli's eyelids trembled. She said softly, "I have never drank the wine brewed by Tiandao's father, senior, only you have enjoyed this kind of heart." Shuanghan took the hand of the flagon and gave a pause. She put down the jug, sat up straight, and looked at Jinli with a half smile. "It seems that it's a lie to invite me to drink, little Jinli, what do you want to say?" Jinli took a deep breath. "I want to tell you a secret." "Secret?" Shuanghan read the two words once and asked, "Is it related to me?" Jinli nodded. Shuanghan asked again, "Is it related to your Tiandao father?" Jinli was surprised at her sharpness and nodded again. Shuanghan's body sat upright and lazily lowered down again. "Then tell me." Jinli glanced at her and said, "Goddess Wangshu told me this." "Wangshu?" Shuanghan frowned and thought about it carefully. "Ah, it's her." Jinli looked straight at her. "Senior, do you know why my Tiandao father became Tiandao?" Shuanghan frowned, and his eyes sharpened in an instant. "What?" For a moment, the hairs on Jinli's back stood on end. She seemed to see countless sharp swords hanging above her head, which could tear herself apart by a hair's breadth. For the first time, she really felt what is called the ancestor of all soldiers, and what is called the strength that can cut through the heavens. This woman, even though she has been in a place like the abyss of gods for tens of thousands of years, can still make all existences feel threatened with just one look. She took a deep breath without any trace. "It's because of you."